Philippians chapter 2, verses 25 through 30. I have thought it necessary to send to you Epaphroditus, my brother and fellow worker and fellow soldier, and your messenger and minister to my need. For he had been longing for all of you, and has been distressed because you heard that he was ill. Indeed, he was ill, near to death. But God had mercy on him, and not only on him, but also on me, lest I should have sorrow upon sorrow. I am the more eager to send him, therefore, that you may rejoice at seeing him again, and that I may be less anxious. So receive him in the Lord with all joy, and honor such men, for he nearly died for the work of Christ, risking his life to complete what was lacking in your service towards me. The last time we were together, Paul talked about his beloved protege Timothy, but Paul had a second companion with him, who ministered to him during his long hours of his incarceration, that is Epaphroditus. These few short verses are all the Bible has to say about Epaphroditus, but they do provide for us a window into his character and his life. Epaphroditus was a member, possibly the pastor, of the Philippian church. He was a man like-minded with Paul and Timothy. He had been assigned the duty of bringing to Rome a financial gift for Paul. On his arrival, he proved to be invaluable as he comforted Paul by his companionship, and he assisted Paul in Paul's continued ministry. However, he was seized with a violent illness which nearly proved fatal. News of this illness, but not necessarily his recovery, had reached the Philippian church, and this caused extreme anxiety to his friends back home. After encouraging them by the promise of Timothy's coming, and possibly that of his own, Paul now ministers to the Philippians again by promising to return their beloved Epaphroditus. So who was this guy? Epaphroditus was a common name of that period. It's a combination of two Greek words, epi, meaning pertaining to, and Aphrodite, which is the goddess of love and beauty. In this predominantly heathen community, the conjecture is that Epaphroditus descended from a family that had been devoted to the goddess of Aphrodite. Paul uses three words arranged in ascending order to describe Epaphroditus' relationship to himself. He refers to him as his brother, as they shared a common father and a common savior, a fellow worker, as they shared a common labor field, and thirdly, he calls him a fellow soldier, as they shared a common danger in the common warfare for the gospel. Next, Paul uses two words to describe Epaphroditus in terms of his relationship to the Philippians. One, he was a messenger, literally apostle, but this term is used here in its widest sense, indicating somebody who had been delegated by the church. He was not only to bring a gift to Paul, but to be a gift for Paul, to remain and serve him. He was also referred to as a minister, a word described for those engaged in the priestly service at the temple. So Paul viewed Epaphroditus' effort as an official and sacred service, not only to Paul, but to God. Early church tradition holds that Epaphroditus was the bishop of the Philippian church. While at a great distance and actively engaged in a noble task for the kingdom, he was nevertheless distracted by his concern for his flock back home. Paul used the word distress to describe his feelings. Now, this is the strongest possible word in the Greek, and it depicts a confused, restless, health-distracted state. It was used also in connection with Jesus' anguish in the Garden of Gethsemane. Indeed, Epaphroditus was ill, even to the point of death. But God pitied both Epaphroditus and Paul. It's comforting to know that the heart of God is filled with mercy, which is renewed for us every morning. If added to Paul's already enormous stress of incarceration, the death of such a close companion would have been almost more than he could bear. The best remedy for relieving the Philippians' worry over Epaphroditus' illness and failing health was for them to see him completely restored to health. This again displayed Paul's pastoral heart. Epaphroditus' presence with Paul was a significant source of comfort. Yet easing the mind of his beloved Philippians meant more to Paul than any personal service he might receive from Epaphroditus. Paul said that we are to hold individuals like Timothy and Epaphroditus in very high esteem because they demonstrated the humility and love so essential to the cause of Christ. They exhibited a sincere concern for others, a readiness to serve others, and a willingness to sacrifice themselves for others, even to the point of death. The church today needs more people like these two men to provide a backup and support necessary for the cause of Christ. We need to look past our own wants and seek to fulfill the needs of others. This is the antidote to depression. A fascinating study on the principle of the Golden Rule was conducted by Bernard Rimland. He was the director of the Institute of Child Behavioral Research. Rimland found that the happiest people were those who helped others. Each person involved in the study was asked to list 10 people he knew best and to label them happy or not happy. Then he was to go through the list a second time and label each one selfish or unselfish, using this definition for the word selfish: a stable tendency to devote one's time and resources to one's own interest, an unwillingness to inconvenience oneself for others. In categorizing the result, Rimland found that all the people labeled happy were also labeled unselfish. And he wrote that those activities who devoted themselves to happiness were far less likely to be happy than those who devoted themselves to making other people happy. So, if you want to live a satisfying, productive life, adopt the mind of Christ and follow this one most basic commandment: do unto others as you would have them do unto you.